Today is day 476 of the Arukh HaShulchan Yomi. Today's Arukh HaShulchan Yomi, which corresponds this year to the Arukh HaShulchan for Yom Kippur, is sponsored by Reb Meir Machlin, one of my close Talmidim, for Nishmas, his father, Reb Peretz Ben Yehuda. The Neshama should have an Aliyah. If you would like to sponsor an upcoming share more of the Arukh HaShulchan Yomi, please contact me directly. It will be very greatly appreciated. Today we're doing Siman Shin Zayin again, Chavav to Lamed Beis. Chavav. Shon Chachamim. By Reish Perek Chav Gimel. Chachamim learned beginning of the 23rd paragraph of Shabbos. Shoel Odom Mechaber Kal Yain Kal Shemen. A person could borrow from his friends barrels of wine, barrels of oil. V'ad shelo yamar lo haveni. So he doesn't say loan them to me. He made him amino if he doesn't the lender does not trust the borrower. So he can leave his talus by him as collateral. But say imo cheshbon, it makes of him a reckoning la'achar Shabbos. And in English we really don't have this distinction. The difference between she'ela and hava, because when I ask to borrow something, it's the same language asking to borrow money and asking to borrow an object. But in Hebrew, there is a difference between she'ela, which is uniquely about borrowing objects, and hava, which is uniquely for borrowing money. So, therefore, there is a difference, which I don't know, which could you could translate into English, which is problematic. But that's what he says. That's what he says. That by a loan you're going to by the language of a loan you're likely to come to write it down. Whereas asking if you're asking the language of borrowing an object, you're not concerned that you're going to come to write it down. Because the loan is for a longer period of time. Because we know that a generic loan is 30 days. You're going to come write your ledger. I loaned so and so much. They shouldn't forget how much money it was. But if it's an object, then it's due immediately upon finishing the use thereof. You're not going to write things down. That's Rashi. This explains because it's a loan, it's not the same money you're returning. And it's going to come to write it down. The same object that was borrowed is given back. You have to not going to write it down. Hi, here we're talking about wine oil where you don't give back the same wine oil. Nevertheless, since you mention the language of borrowing an object, you remember you won't come to write it down. Now, the Mishnah Berurah says, and the Pivot says, named the Rashba, language of a loan doesn't work even if he stipulates that the loan is for a short period of time, less than 30 days. The Rabbanan didn't draw any distinction, lo plug. It also says, we're not clear, he's not clear, it's not clear in the converse. So he said, loan me an object, Hashileni, for a long period of time. What's the status in that case? So we say lo plug the heter, which I would assume to be the case, or perhaps we're more machmir. Now, the Chashulchan Zayin actually deals with my question from before. Evidently in Russian, or perhaps also in Yiddish, there's no distinction between, I guess in Yiddish too, there is no difference between the languages. And therefore he says, there's no distinction between the language of borrowing money and the language of borrowing an object. You have to say, give it to me, in order to make a distinction. You can conclude, and I will give it back to you. Evidently, this is from the Taz. If you don't say that language, in other words, you don't guarantee the return of the object, well, that's okay, as far as you're concerned, but might not be okay as far as the giver is concerned, because it sounds like a gift, and he's not going to agree to that. That's revealing to him, you're going to give it back to him. Only saying, Tainly, give it to me as a heker, distinguishing that and a monetary loan. However, says Yehoshua Shulchan, Ein Yisharim B'zeh. Today we use the language of borrowing. Why? We should say Ein Hergeya regularly because save a bit pinkas rakavos mos. Because today we don't write things down in a ledger unless it's money. V'lavas kilim mashki, and we don't come just because we use the lashon avos to write down loans of objects of food and beverage. I'm saying allows the gam hava. Interesting, but that's the minute is there. The stam hava is not shloshim yom. I didn't know that. Okay, that's a big chiddush. That we demand back loans immediately. But Allah is not happy with this Mogen Avraham. But just as Ayin Sham doesn't tell us what the actual issue is. But okay, so this is interesting development of Allah. We'll probably write an entire essay on these few lines at the beginning of Sif Chav Zayin in Arukh HaShulchan. That which the Mishnah allowed to leave a collateral. Shabbos has to be a collateral which something can be used on Shabbos. Avodavar she'ein tzarich Shabbos, something which is not something which is a need for Shabbos. Lo hitir litei mashka, they don't allow you to give us collateral. So Gankin has kinyan. It's also like a kinyan. If I gave somebody something which they can only use on a weekday, even if I'm allowed to give it to them, because it's say something which is an electric canister. So I can move it because sort of gufa makoma perhaps, but it's not. It's like that looks much more like a kinyan. Also, when you're giving this collateral, don't say there's a collateral. There's a kuvz on the chol. If nothing else, that's like a weekday activity. And below omer udvarim. It has to be a silent collateral. Don't say anything. Change shalom b'Shabbos, davar she'ein tzarich Shabbos, and just like you don't. Sorry. There's like you can't borrow on Shabbos something which is not for the purpose of Shabbos. Kach in pouring with Shabbos, davar she'ein Shabbos, you don't pay back on Shabbos, something which is not the purpose of Shabbos. This is also similar to commercial activity. Tzarich Shabbos mutzar, but it's only permitted for the purpose of Shabbos. Permitted. The Mucham also the covered Shabbos because it's clear it's for the honor of Shabbos. Shabbos. And when it's you, and when you're paying back something which is Tzarich Shabbos, that would mean many yain b'shem and such like when you borrow wine oil in the middle of the week. Even though it's not the same wine and oil, it's the different wine and oil. Nevertheless, you can pay it back on Shabbos. If the lender requires that for purposes of Shabbos for himself. Mishnah Berurah says the place is said that if he says in a lashon of chazara, return, not a lashon of priya, paying back, it's mutter anyway, because there's a heker, and you're not going to come to erase the record of the loan on your books. But again, all this is only something which is food and necessary for Shabbos, but otherwise it's also no matter what language you use. There's a bracket here. That's what Mishnah Berurah was just referring to. That there's a prohibition in paying back because you might come to a race from your ledger. So he says that can't be the actual reason because the Ramah says you're not to pay something back even if it was borrowed with the language of borrowing objects. Obviously didn't write it down. Okay, but the reference we don't actually have to get into at the moment. We know the Rabbanos are permitted because of a loss. And it says Shabbos, so merchandise is being destroyed on Shabbos by rain, or something else, or I say beat kodemaya, or a flood is coming, a tidal wave. It's going to cause a loss. Or a barrel of wine has become leaky. It's become I don't know, it's become bad for Lashon of Ra. Not sure the best language that is in English. Also, as going to cut lost also, and you can't say to Naju, Lech vatzil my money, go and save my money. The close Lein Yehudi el Haroslo. But he can call the non-Jew and go, look, there, and show it. I'll be sure there, but that's even though you know he's going to save it for you. So the Rabbanans we're talking about Loit Tir Shvus, and this is referring to even to Amir Lakum, not just obviously this is Rabbanan direct, but even is Amir Lakum, and therefore you have to hint to him. And Chen Yochel Lomar Lo, and I don't remember from the Gemara the first thing about showing him, but this is in the Gemara the second thing for sure. You Chen Yochel Lomar Lo, you can say Chen Chol Amar. You can also say not Lo. You say Kol Hamatzu Eino Mafsid. Anybody who saves stuff is not going to lose, because they'll be, he'll reimburse them after Shabbos. So they're going to save it not as your shliach, but because they want to make the money after Shabbos. Just like you're allowed to say about fire. Anybody who extinguishes fire is not going to lose. They'll say it's only permitted by a fire. Somebody who was lenient does not lose out, and there's a double meaning there. Does not lose out on his Shmir Shabbos, and also does not lose out on his property being lost. Chavtes. V'da, you should know. Shazeh, the zeh she'asal le'yisol l'mar le'en Yehudi lech v'atzil. The Jew is now telling the non-Jew go and save it. Zek she'muchrach she'en Yehudi l'atzil de malacha d'oraisa. That's why the non-Jew is going to have to do malacha d'oraisa to save the stuff. Avol le'lecha malacha d'oraisa, but there's no malacha d'oraisa involved. Lo shvus the rabbanon, but it's the rabbanon but to l'mar lo b'feirush that explicitly lech v'atzil v'ashalem lecha. Go save it and I'll pay you. So if you design the shvus, Amir La'akum, telling the non-Jew to do stuff where it's a Drabanan. The Makam Hefsei local is a Drabanan. Drabanan, not Asa and Makam Hefsei. Koshking Shehefsei Gadol. And certainly when there's a great loss. The law Asu Raka Amir La'akum, Tabashut Tzarich La'atzola, La'sos Amalacha. The only time they forbade telling the non-Jew to do it is when, in order to save the stuff, he has to do a Torah violation, or to, either Av or Talag or derivative malacha. So therefore, the person whose property is in trouble has to know, or quickly ask a rabbi, what kind of a prohibition doing here? Suddenly when there's no rabbanon at all, it's just a little bit of a toil. In other words, you help a sweat or something by doing it. It takes a lot of work. That you're allowed to save even yourself. That's going to come up later. The primary principle is when he's saving some from a loss in Shabbos, person should not do something on his own initiative, but by asking the rabbi who is the leader of the community. And he will indicate him in which manner he shall go. What's interesting is the first indication I think we have in the Arukh HaShulchan. The Arukh HaShulchan was written for Balabatim. I don't think we understood necessarily otherwise, but here it's clear he's saying that instead of Balabas, go ask the Rav. He wouldn't be writing this for Rabbanim and saying, go ask a Rav, although who knows? The situation back then in Nevardik was like the situation today, where you have Rabbanim who need to ask Rabbanim because they don't know Allah themselves. They say the joke is that in the back of Rav Moshe Feinstein Smichas for MTJ, they would say not for actual use, in case of actual question, call this number with Rav Moshe's number. Okay, Lamed Kasa Rambam Perek Vav Din Ches. Yisrael She'amar Lein Yehudi. If a Jew told a non-Jew, Vasos l'malacha zu b'Shabbos, do a certain malacha on Shabbos, Albish Avar, even though he did an Aveira, and we would give him Malkus Rabbanan, which is called Malkus Maris. We would flog him for it at a time when we were allowed to do such things. He's allowed to derive benefit from that malacha that evening, after Shabbos. Until he waits long enough that the malacha could have been done after night falls. And only wherever they said you have to wait Kadesh Yamtim. It's only because on this account. She told me I'm mutter miyad. If you're going to say it would be mutter immediately. Shema yarmal any hudi laso slow. Maybe he'll tell a non-Jew to do it. V'yetz ador mucha miyad, and it's going to come out immediately that it's going to be permitted, and it's even going to be a problem mamish at the end of Shabbos because they have an advantage that it's going to be mutter immediately after Shabbos. Came shows such yam thing Yasu, but once we forbade her until after Yasu, he's never going to come to do it on Shabbos. Sharein stack of klum, he doesn't gain anything by the time it's on Shabbos. He might as well wait till after Shabbos because anyway, he's going to have to wait. Sorry. And Neshu Misake is not getting anything. Neshu Misake will err with Yasu. There was that shit announced of Shabbos because impeded from doing it until Chtei so whatever was done on Shabbos, Akal Shana, end quote for the Rambam. But I forgot them also Malacha Me'atzmon B'Shabbos, even though somebody did Malacha on his own on Shabbos, but something called Gimel must have amazed it also Olam. If he did it deliberately, it's also for him to have any benefit forever. Same nation is also Isser D'Oraisa. It's because he did a Torah prohibition himself. Please in here, Dim also B'Atzmon Isser D'Rabbanan. And from this we can infer that if he himself did an Isser D'Rabbanan, Mutar Elas Mitzvah Shabbos Kadesh Yaseh. If you have to derive benefit from it after Shabbos is over, after Kadesh Yaseh. Just like by telling a non-Jew to do D'Oraisa. I told a non-Jew to do a Malach, it's only D'Rabbanan, maybe you don't have to wait even Kadesh Yaseh. And so too if you told him, the non-Jew, inadvertently, without thinking, to do an Issa D'Oraisa, Ganke came. Maybe also don't have to wait Kadesh Yaseh. There are those poskim who hold that if you told a non-Jew to deliberately to do this in the right zone, it's also for you forever. It's like as if you didn't let yourself. It's basically the name Rabbeinu Yerucham. But the Beisayis of Rabbeinu says Rambam that of course it will be mutter after Kadesh Yaseh. But there's a double shade for Esiyah, something which is not public. The Davar Naseh for Esiyah is done in public. Also, so in forever commotion nichto b'simin shin chav hey, as we shall see much later. Okay, so Reish Mandal concerning construction on Shabbos in a public place. And the Shlabura is no, I was looking in the wrong place. Sorry. Actually, we should put on this. Yeah, the Shlabura says that if you told a non-Jew to do Malach D'Rabbanan, it's appropriate to be machmir to wait b'chtei sheyaseh on Motzei Shabbos, not like the suggestion of the Arukh HaShulchan. Lamed Aleph. No, more Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah says that from Taz it seems that specifically here Chachamim answered something that it's not any for Esiyah. Simply here Chachamim answered something answered forever because it's a gnai, but the malachas, no matter what, it's only asur b'chdei sheyaseh. So if you want to be machmir if it's necessary. Okay, that's a bit cryptic. I guess I'll have to wait to see Mishin Chafei to see in more detail. Lamed Aleph. Kasav Shem Medin Chav Aleph. It says there, Eino Yudi Yishnuchas the Beis Yisrael V'Yichni Shem Chav. A non-Jew comes into a Jew's house and brought his objects there. Mutar. That's okay. I feel so even once he came in, you told him to put them in this corner. I raised the mutar's missile akan l'shono. Then move on. It's not clear. Why isn't it obvious? The guy did everything for himself. Came the object belonged to a non-Jew. So he just happens to be safekeeping them by this person. Why couldn't he tell him put it in this corner? Many. Arukh says, I don't even know the source of this halacha. It was in brackets, I imagine mission there should not get okay. And the other thing is like the Kamar. So the Arukh says this way he must be saying. I feel Yisharu Shal Yisrael, even if the objects he brought in are no longer going to be the non-Jews, they're going to be now the Jews. They're being given to him. such as where they already spoke prior to Shabbos. The Jew wants these objects, so now he brings them. So they're not yet the Jews, because he doesn't want to make a kinyan on Shabbos. Arukh HaShulchan is going to make the kinyan after Shabbos. It's also permissible. So it's like this. Non-Jews who bring grain on Shabbos to a Jew, to whom they owe the grain. And the Yisrael gives, access from his opening to his warehouse. And the non-Jews are putting the stuff there. And they are measuring, counting. Those who permit this, because the non-Jew is involved in his own malacha. Doesn't belong to the Jew until after it's measured. They reckon after the measuring. This is very much like the Rambam. This Rambam which you quoted at the beginning of the halacha. I'm going to see if, as we explained, merchandise which belongs actually to the Jew. It's like commercial activity, and you're not allowed to accept them on Shabbos. If they don't want to wait till Motzei Shabbos, and they bring them elsewhere, they take them back, and they bring them somewhere else. It's like when UPS brings something to your door and you don't want to sign for it because it's Shabbos. So of course they leave it. But let's say they wouldn't want to leave it, and they're going to take it back, and it's going to cause you a loss. Maybe they'll return it to the sender. Nilani is daiti. There are shaylem alem asuma shetirtzu. Aniyim bicholti kabam b'Shabbos. So of course you can't sign, but what you can. So it's not a good marshal. But you can say, do what you do. I don't want to accept them on Shabbos. But so say, okay, we can do what we want to do. We'll unload here in the courtyard. And you shouldn't speak to him until after Shabbos. In this case, even though normally it's also to put the schera in the house or the courtyard of the Jew, much as have a simulation of base. What are you going to do? You didn't arrange it. They came on their own at this time. Non-Jews who make cheese on Shabbos. So Rowan, the Jew sees them. You can know some. You can buy them from them. Because the non-Jews doing making the cheese for himself for commercial activities. Obviously, so made even though the Jew is standing there with the herd. I'm not sure he said cheese. It was the same thing with milk. Because milk, maybe I don't know why he's not milking too. But even he's there for a month or two as kind of the mashgiach. But and it's being done in order to sell to a Jew. Shari, it's permissible. So the non-Jew is making cheese out of it from his animals. And wants Jews to buy it. He hires a Jew to stand there but during the milking, and they're making the cheese. They came with Shagvina, so since the cheese doesn't belong to a Jew, and Isamash sells some Shabbos. Now, probably makes some Shabbos. So even though in the end it will come to Jews' hands, nevertheless, now they don't belong to the Jew. So and the Jew can stand there when they're being made on account of kashrus. Seems fascinating that this is the day which is sponsored by Reb Meir Machlin, because he has done this on cheeses for the OU on Shabbos and Yontif. So the Yisrael says some side of kashrus. He can stand there on Shabbos Yontif to watch the kashrus. I feel but even if the Jew then gets the cheese to pay him for for what they owe him, as for the mashgiach mutter, that's okay. Because now they belong to the non-Jew. Brackets, he says, all right, that's not. I'm giving my because Ramah, you call me cousin, also the most cool because if you doubt, okay, it's something which you referred to previously. Mishnah says you only have to take them for payment if otherwise you're not going to get paid. Okay. Now, technically, we should stop here because this is the end of today's Arukh HaShulchan Yomi, but we only have one more halacha left in the simon, and when we have that, we very often do it. So let's do it. Kasar Beda Beis Yosef Siv Chafav Oslo Mal Ein Yidi B'Shabbos Now to Del Nanjo on Shabbos Halach Basa Zeh B'Shol Sol Tzarchacha. Go take this meat and cook it for yourself. Mishabur says also even tell them this on Erev Shabbos. And even if the non-Jew is not dependent on you for his food, he can tell him to do malacha for himself. Meaning, instead of coming on we say it's the Rabban tell a Jew, non-Jew to do malacha, malacha shalom. That's to do our work. Shalom tell him to do his work. And tell him cook for yourself, bake for yourself. It's nothing. Nevertheless, who knows him if you give him the meat to do it, Asur, the basar sheisan, these basar Shabbos, it's the meat of a Jew is being cooked on Shabbos. Can't cook it, is anything similar to that. The da and you show the compound mim nemar bagamara the cold darashim mishum shvus, and which is the rabbanon lo gozu ala ben hashmashos utzarach mitzvah. It's not usher during twilight if it's the purpose of mitzvah. Fichem mutar mal enudi ben hashmashos hadlikli yasaner or sham malacha. That's where you can tell a Jew on ben hashmashos light for me a candle or some other malacha. So and then you can do a shvus by yourself and banish mushroom malcolm mitzvah. And in African, of course, there's no Erev or an Erev we don't trust, so you can use it. You can You can carry banish mushrooms. If it's a tzarach mitzvah, aval hafrish hatanan en masim esavadai. But to set aside ice cream. So you can designate Meiser Ben Hashmashos. Hafresh, no, but not to separate the Meiser. Not a Meiser Misavadai. Yeshom Megas, because you don't, even with the way the rest of the Rabbanon, so you can carry a tikkun, but like a Masakin Mona, because it looks like Masakin Mona, nevertheless, since there's an 8 to do without actually separating it, I guess that's what you do. Some say that if he was distracted the entire day and couldn't take off the Meiser physically, during the daytime, mutter is allowed to be a shmashos tzarich im b'din zed. This is not clear. V'oyis bar b'zeb siman shin man beis. This will be clarified later on. Im gam motzei Shabbos lo gazim lo din hashmashos gam king is bar Hashem siyad dishma. Question whether this concept of shvus ben hashmashos also applies motzei Shabbos or only erev Shabbos. That will be much later when we get to Shimon Beis clarified.